Welcome to Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today I have with me my special guest, Maleeta Kitchen. Maleeta, how you doing?
Hi everyone.
It's good to have you on the show. Thank you for taking the time. I see you doing some things on social media that I really wanted to help you promote and help you market because I really see the value in it. You'll even see some really blatant tie-ins to some of my examples about how people find their passion and how it drives them to fix something that's in the world. And I think you'll identify with some of my examples because it deals directly with youth and education, which I know that's your forte
Yeah.
from what I've been seeing online.
Yeah.
All right. So my first question to kind of launch us into this discussion is, Maleeta, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
In my lane, yes. In my lane, I know that I don't know everything, but what I know well, and what I do well, but I'm always in a place of reflection and I'm always in a place of being open to learning new. So in my lane, I do consider myself a genius, but just because I consider myself a genius doesn't mean that I'm not open to learning new and I have tapped out at the course of my potential. So I consider myself a genius, but in my lane.
With room to improve.
Room to improve and room to grow.
That was like the most concise, greatest answer I've heard in a while. That's great that you affirm that, but I like how you started it. You was like, in my lane, though, because that's very much the language that we're going to be talking about as we kind of deconstruct this word genius and then reconstruct it specific to you, because it is about your lane.
Yep.
It is very much about your element. Like, you are a subject matter expert. That's what corporate America loves to call it.
Yeah.
You do something very well. You've put in work for something that people can come to you for, and that you are willingly, making yourself available for other people to utilize and access what you're an expert at. So that's an excellent answer. Can you think back to a time? I want you to kind of go back in time for me for a second.
Okay.
To a place where you didn't think you were a genius. Like, I want to hear about that too. Like, what was your transition? When did you realize, like, I got something special that not everybody else has, and you owned it as your genius? But before you get into that, what's the first name that comes to mind when you hear this word genius?
Ooh, I would have to say I'm going to go with Oprah. You asked me another day, I probably would say somebody different, but I would just think about Oprah, how she kind of reinvented herself and like the behind the scenes work, how she went from television to film and kind of used a lot of her entertainment power to kind of help people, worldwide and things like that, and the philanthropy work that she's done. So when I think about genius, I definitely think about her, how she used what she was just good at and reaching out and connecting to the people to help the greater good.
All right. So there's no wrong answers, because what you see, it's like poetry when you interpret it. What you see, what you have. And I think everybody has genius potential. That's why I'm doing these interviews. Yes. But I feel like not enough people are either confident enough to say it out loud, or they really have been in a position and in a place where they have not been afforded the chance to see the greatness in themselves. I mean, I know a little bit about Oprah's story, and I know there was a time where she definitely felt that way. Being an African-American woman in that industry, she was alone.
Right.
She didn't fit, she didn't look the part, she didn't, but she did not buy into these labels that people were trying to put on her to make their world make sense.
Right.
Like, no, I'm going to define myself by who I know I have.
She carved out her own space, and she was able to put herself in a position to paint the narrative. And that's the story that you want. You want to be able to tell your story on your time and your terms, and have people be attracted to your story and not the story that they think that you should be leading, or the story that they think that, you're a part of that character in that story.
Yep. And that's it's especially important for us as African Americans, because people love to tell us what our story is.
Right. And it's just like, no, this is not, that's not my story. This is my story. Nope. Right.
Yeah. Okay. So Oprah is your person today, like you said.
Today.
I like how, again, you're saying things in different ways. She was like in her space. She made her own space. Very much akin to what you said about being in your own lane. That's so key and pivotal to understanding your specific genius.
Yep.
Do you know who the number one answer is? Who I hear when I do this workshop in front of kids, when I do it in front of adults, and when I do it one-on-one, the number one answer that most people say, the name that comes to mind is Albert Einstein.
Yep. Yep, because that's
Right.
the narrative that has been painted. So when you say genius, that's who, unfortunately, we think of this older white male who's,
Yeah.
losing hair, and not to take anything away from him, because he
Right.
definitely, as a math person, he definitely is up there. But, empowering our children and our youth to believe in themselves, and that you can be book smart, but you can also be, street smart, and you can also kind of have a knack for things, but you got to see it within yourself, and you have to know how to channel that to carve out your own space. You don't have to conform to what society says, but you can carve out your own space and go fast in your lane.
You switching it. Like, I'm just going to give you the host now. You just, you saying everything.
Go fast in your lane.
But you know what though? You said street smarts, and then I don't know what I was watching recently, but it's talking about, the ghetto and places that we've been confined to. But it was like, man, if you go into this ghetto and you see some of these street pharmacists, I'll call them, like they could be running
empires, CEOs, Fortune
empires,
500 companies.
Yeah, because there was this business acumen that was there, but they just weren't afforded the opportunities and the resources to develop it in the right way.
Right.
So it manifested itself. They made their own lane, but they made their own lane through illegal methods, right? But the acumen is still there. So again, I like what you're saying, because you're like, yeah, in Einstein's math lane, in Einstein's physics lane, he is a genius. I'm not taking anything away from this man. But what we've typically done, and I know that you're going to understand this, what we've typically done is when we say Einstein is a genius, we put this word on this pedestal with him and make it out of reach for us.
Right.
So we associate it to him, but then we disassociate from ourselves because we're like, well, I ain't Einstein. I don't know what even.
Right. And we make the genius only around mathematics, right?
Yeah.
Because it makes me think about, it makes me think about a student that I had years ago. And just, she had a mouth. She was a sassy little thing. And so, I always thought that she had a talent that was in there, because I used to sit and watch this child go back and forth with adults. And so while it was disrespectful, someone
it was quick though. It was like, oh,
but I thought about how smart must she be to be able to come back with those answers that quickly and that matter of fact. And so it was just like, that needs to be channeled, because I don't know what she's going to do, but I mean, I'm like, she needs to be a litigator or something, like, and so you have to be able to see that, and no one else saw that, because her test scores weren't off the chart. She wasn't a straight A student, but I'm like, there is something to be said to be able to mentally synthesize information that quick and spit it right back out.
Right, definitely. And we're definitely going to get into the academics of it, and how that label it marginalizes so many people, because when you talk about not having good test scores, I mean, genius is not academics. Genius is not all IQ. Genius is definitely not found in standardized testing, right? So we have to begin to really look at things from a different perspective, and like you said, build something around what we see in people, right? So I have a quote for you. It purportedly comes from Einstein, but the interwebs would be lying. But it's a good quote either way, because it really helps us get to the next level of what I'm talking about with you today. So you ready for the quote?
Ready for the quote.
Here it is. If you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
I can see that.
Have you heard that before?
I haven't heard it, but it resonates with me as an educator.
I knew it would.
Because you got to tap into, you're not supposed to climb a tree.
Yeah.
Right. You're not supposed to. You got fins and gills. Like, you're supposed to, you in the wrong lane. You're in the wrong lane.
Wrong lane. Exactly. So when we start talking about this metaphor, because I'm hanging my hat on this for a little bit, because it's so powerful. The fish has a completely different element than what it has if it's trying to climb a tree. Like you said, a fish has gills, fins, scales. It's streamlined for water.
Right.
That's its element. And if somebody would stop being self-serving enough to say, hey, look, this fish probably belongs in the water. Like
Right.
when I hear this image, I always think of like the fish is almost on an island trying to climb this tree, but the water is like all around the
Right.
island.
It's there. It's there. And it's infinite possibilities when you think about an island and water and how water is so fluid, it's so flexible. And so you're trying to climb a tree. If you want to kind of really break this down a little bit, that's so rigid. It's so
Yeah,
rigid. Like a tree is going to be so rigid, whereas though you have the flexibility and being fluid with all the water.
I like that. I like that. See, you dropping gems. Talking about the rigidity of the tree we're going to talk about a little later, because to me the tree represents systems, and
Mm,
systems are built very rigidly for only certain people to manifest and go through them. Like it doesn't, everybody doesn't fit in the system. But
right.
the other part that I think of when I hear this quote is somebody or some people that are constantly coming by every day and checking in on this fish and being like, you ain't climbed this tree yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're part of the system. They're trying to promote this tree as the way to go for this fish
Mm-hmm.
without considering the design of the fish.
Right. Right. And then
Everybody knows like fish belong in water. My fault. Go ahead.
no. I mean, and just kind of reflecting back to education, I mean, it's a big thing. And it's been a big thing for years when we talk about equity
Yeah.
versus equality. And so when you start talking about that, now I'm kind of seeing somebody came along and maybe they gave the fish a ladder now. And, and it's like, this
Yeah.
still doesn't work. This still doesn't work.
That's great. Like here, take this ladder. Just like helping you. You got a ladder now. Like, dude, I don't have arms, dude. Like,
Right.
what
I
are you
don't have
doing?
arms. I got fins. It's nothing I can do.
It's not gonna work.
Yeah.
So that is the crux of how I define genius for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is your lane? And
Mm-hmm.
if you find yourself dysfunctional in a thing, then try something different. But people have to know that there's something else out there for them, and there's something else for them to tap into. And I mean, at the point where people are children and are youth, this is when it's most important in the formative years, because how they see themselves, because this is traumatic, right?
Right.
This fish being out of water, what's going to happen if the fish stays out of water for too long?
Right. Right.
It's going to die.
It's going to die. And that's where we
Right.
see, if you think about it deeply more with adults, that's where they lose their motivation. And you start hearing some of the self-fulfilling prophecies. I was never good at math.
Yep.
School just wasn't my thing. Well, unfortunately, the way society is set up, you got to have you got to have some schooling in there to unlock those doors of opportunity at times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so the trauma sets in, right? Because, the person has been, and what I see personally, when I look out and look at people now, I'm not saying that people are physically dying, but their genius is dying.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it's my job to revitalize, resuscitate, and resurrect the genius that I see in everybody. Right. And so how do I do this? I do this by the book, literally, because I have a book on it, by 3 different components.
Okay.
We're going to talk about those 3 components, and it's passion, talent, and purpose. So I subscribe to you. We can figure out these 3 elements, these 3 components for everybody, then we can unlock people's genius. All right. So let's talk about this passion. Passion is where your element is. Passion is your lane. Passion is a space that should be made for you to thrive and be successful. But I define passion a little bit differently, just like how we're redefining the traditional word genius. We're going to redefine passion as it relates to this function, this equation that I have. And sorry, it is a kind of a logical type of equation. It's very visual too, though. All right, so I'm going to ask you another question. What comes to mind? What words come to mind when you hear the word passion?
So when I think of passion, I think of like TATE, well, I should say TATEM, which is an acronym. So that stands for teaching, attitude, discipline, endurance, and motivation. And when you package them together, that would give you the passion. Because when you put all, you've got teaching, attitude, discipline, endurance, and motivation, and that will take you where you need to go. So in terms of like the hardworkiness and like, you can throw yourself and be all in and be truly focused, aware on it, but you need those individual things to come together, those principles to come together. And when you put them all together, that is the passion. Because I didn't get by math. Like, so the backstory is that I wasn't good at math. I wasn't good at math. Didn't really, back in undergrad and university, I remember taking a math course, not once, but twice.
Okay.
Maybe 3 times. And so when I started my teaching career, it was just more so like, okay, you have reading because I was elementary, or you have math. And math was just a whole lot more fun because you had different things that you could work with, different manipulatives. And so it just came that the best advice that I got in my first year teaching was just take one content area and really focus on that, fully immerse yourself in that content area. And then the next year teaching, maybe you're going to focus on science or language arts. So that first year I took on math and found that I really liked it. And then the second year I actually changed the level of mathematics I was teaching. So I needed another year in math. And then somewhere around year 3 or year 4, I found that I was really good at it because I pushed myself to be the math teacher I didn't have.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you say that acronym for me again?
So it's TATEM. So teaching, attitude, discipline, endurance, and motivation.
Nice. That's really good.
Yeah.
So that reminds me too, because you said, hey, look, I wasn't good at math. So remember, I wanted you to come back to when did you realize that, there was a time in your life, I assume, because I think all of us have been there where we're like, nah, I'm not a genius. Mm-hmm. And then something switched. So what switched for you where you were like, nah, I got something though?
I think somewhere, so this fall will be year 20 for teaching.
Wow.
I know, right? Year 20. So it'll be year 20 for teaching. So I'm going to say somewhere around year 4 or year 5 of teaching, which should have been maybe 2000 and maybe 8, maybe 7 or 8.
Okay.
Where I really realized it was like, you're kind of good at this. And then it was just more so thinking about if I have a light, how other people started to like kind of use my light for guidance, other teachers, other students, getting the feedback from parents, like they made so much growth. And so taking a moment to sit back and really look at it, it was like, you are really good at this. So I do have a master's degree in mathematics because
wow.
you are really good at this, but it took that hard work. It took that because it did not come easy. And it was just like, okay, so now let's think about this. And I think that in my lane, what my genius is the ability to break things down into the smallest level and being able to synthesize information really quickly. That is my God-given talent, I think that it is. And so teaching works really well for that because when you're working with children, you got to break that down and synthesizing very quickly that they don't get it and being able to change the course of the lesson or change the course of my delivery of instruction really, really quickly. So teaching works for that. I don't know another profession that might work with, but teaching works really well for that. I can break things down really simple, really easily. And then, I adjust very, very quickly.
Did you catch that though? Like the very thing that's on the inside of you caught in that little girl though.
Exactly. And it was just like,
oh, I see that clear.
She is me. Right. So when I would see her back and forth, and I'm like, when I really thought about it and having her conversations, like, look, you can't talk to people like that. Like, I get it. You can't talk to people like that. And the more I kind of used to watch her, I'm like, oh my gosh, she's me. She's me. Even though, I don't foresee I was disrespectful like that as a child, but just seeing her process information and just like, how do we channel this? Like, what kind of career is this for her? I said, kind of like law school for her. Mm-hmm. Right. I was like, you need to do something where, you could even be a host. We talked about her being a commentator, like just something because she's, you synthesize verbally and then really realize that you're an auditory learner as well, because you're hearing it, you're processing it, and you're able to take it and put it back out very quickly.
Yeah. So this is interesting because before I just finished interviewing Tita mm-hmm. Still, remember her?
Yes.
And I said something to her, and as I was thinking about how this interview was going to go for you today, I'm like, I think Maleeta got this too. And mm-hmm. I'll mention it a little later. It's the section where we talk about your talent, being able to mm-hmm. synthesize information, mm-hmm. break stuff down to its most basic element, and then deliver it to other people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dang it, I don't want to say this again because, maybe it's just a remnant from Tita, but what you're telling me right now kind of confirms it. So when I put it out there later, you'll know.
Okay.
You'll know how you feel about it.
Okay.
So before I go one step mm-hmm. more, I just want to say this, Maleeta. I am very grateful for the position that you're in Because what genius does is you can't recognize the genius in this little girl unless you see it in yourself first. It's
Right.
like being in an airplane, right? Where they say, hey, look, don't try to, you got a child with you and the airbags come down, don't put it on the child first because both y'all gonna die. Both y'all gonna
Right.
suffer. You got to put it on you first. Take in that breath, right? And then see clear to put it on your child, right? And so it's very much about self-affirming because genius is not about, it's not Kanye. It's like everything's about me. It's not that. And look, I'm gonna self-affirm so that I can then turn around and then help other people in the same lane, or even they don't even have to be in the same lane, but you can see it in someone else and help them out, like you just did with this little girl.
Right.
And you have this eye, but genius is always about serving others with within your lane, right? And I see you doing that. So that's like again, why I have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
As I talk about this passion, I want to actually flip it on its ear because most of the time, if I let us talk long enough and I had you keep doing word associations, the word love might come up. That's a typical word that people associate with passion. And when we start talking to youth, we start saying things like, hey, what are you going to do for a living? You should, whatever it is, do what you love, right? And for me, though, for this genius and how it's been revealed to me, I'm gonna come from the opposite end of the spectrum and say, do what you hate, though.
Okay, don't say that again and cut out a little bit. Say it again.
Yeah, don't do what you love, do what you hate.
Right.
So let me explain this now. In truth, I can't claim that I came up with this all on my own. I read a book by Mike Murdoch called The Assignment. And he was like, look, if you want to figure out what your assignment is, what you've been put on this earth to do, figure out what it is that you hate. Because the thing that you hate is something that's broken in the world that impacts you in a negative way, or maybe it impacts someone you love in a negative way. And when you see it function, you're like, oh, I don't like that though. If it's personal, like if it impacted you from your childhood, then that's the trauma. That's
right.
that made you feel or makes you feel like a fish out of water. If I could interview that fish right now and ask that fish, what do you hate? He'd be like, that tree.
right.
Every day that I'm supposed to climb this tree when I feel like I should be doing something else. I hate this. Remember, we talked about that tree represents a system.
Right.
This system that's making me feel dumb. I hate it. Right. And so I ask this question when I go into schools because everybody's not going to respond, yeah, I'm a genius when I ask the question, the kids, right? But when I ask them, tell me what you hate, though, they got a lot to say. And half of the kids, when they're being honest with me, Maleeta, they're like, I hate school, Mr. Key.
I hate it.
I hate math, Mr. Key. Now what? Like, as a matter of fact, I went to a school one time, it was an elementary school, and the principal had called me in to talk to these 10 little boys. This is the story I wanted to tell you specifically. 10 little boys, all minorities, were in one class all day. You know what happened. They were on an IEP, individual education plan. They were 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, but they were all in one class the whole day. They were literally fish out of water in the school, right? And so when I began, I said, all right, I'm workshopping this whole genius thing. So I said, I'm gonna ask them if they're a genius. Not ask them, I'm gonna tell them actually. So I sat down with them and was like, hey, each of you is a genius, right? He looked at me like, dude, you in the wrong class. I don't know what you were told.
Right, this not us.
This not us. So they were used to, and look, you got a problem, you got ADD, ADHD, you're emotionally disturbed, you're disruptive. They're used to these negative labels that people were constantly putting on them to the point where when I tried to affirm them, they was offended, actually. Some of them was looking at me like, don't call me that.
Wow.
Like, ready to fight. But then they was roasting one another, like they was calling each other waterhead. They thought that was hilarious. But they were offended when I began to say, hey, look, you're a genius. So I said, all right, skip that. When I asked them what they hated, Maleeta, as a teacher, what do you think? These boys that could never agree on anything, what to play with, when to play, they all universally told me the same thing. What do you think they told me they hated?
Ooh, I would say they probably hate school.
Yes, it's exactly
because it's difficult. It's difficult. So when you start talking about academic deficits, it's difficult, and school moves too fast in terms of pacing, and it's not at their level. Issues in special ed, that's a different show on a different day. So it's school, and it's just like you have to fit neatly in this box, and we don't all fit in that box. And I can see that.
The tree, remember the tree, for them, the tree was school. So I
Yep.
wasn't surprised at all. Like the teachers in the background sweating, like, why are you letting them say this? Right.
Mhm.
I was like, pause, just give me a second. Because I told them, like, look, if you're hearing what I'm saying, and that the thing that you were put on this planet to address and fix is
Mhm.
the thing that you hate, then I said that I'm looking at 10 future educators.
Mhm.
And they were like, oh, snap. Like their eyes got real big, they got real quiet. And I'm like, nah, I said, let me explain this to you. I say, and you know this,
Mhm.
you of all people know this. I was like, look, there are 8 different learning styles,
Mhm.
but at most, the schools are only teaching from 3.
Yep.
And if you don't teach, if you don't know, if you're not a left brain thinker, logical, if you don't pick up stuff verbally, if you don't pick up stuff auditorily,
Mhm.
this information that you're supposed to be learning is coming at you in a different language. You're like, I don't understand what
And a
this is.
lot of our kids are kinesthetic.
Yes,
They
yes,
gotta get up.
they gotta move.
They
But what
gotta
happens when you get up and you move? Sit down, be still.
down. Too much noise. Y'all laughing too much. It's too much.
Yep. Expeditionary learners, the exploratory, they got to work with their
Mhm.
hands. Keep your hands to yourself.
Yep.
Right. So when you suppress these learning styles, now they're the fish out of water. They're like, I don't feel like I belong here.
Mhm.
I hate this place. But what I told them was, I was like, look, if you, instead of running away from this system, being like, I hate school, if you say, look, something's wrong with this though, and I feel like I'm a part of the solution. If they take if they can identify what their learning style is, which it's not hard to do,
Right.
identify your learning style, and then you take that learning style and make it become your teaching style as an
Mhm.
educator. Now you're going to begin to communicate with other people, other students who have the same learning style as you, but they're going to pick up what you're putting down because you're speaking their language.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's revolutionary now. Now you're not just getting teachers and warm bodies into the system. You're getting specific people like, look, this is my learning style. This has to be my teaching style.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, this could revolutionize and reform the whole industry of
Mhm.
education.
Yep. Yep. I mean, there's no secret that there is a shortage. Different districts around the country have 400, 500, 600, vacancies, 800 vacancies. We
Man.
know that veteran teachers are retiring.
Mhm.
Not only are they retiring, they are not coming back. They are leaving education. And it's just no one sees the sense of urgency to not only continue to fill that pipeline, but to make sure that the people in the classrooms reflect the students in the seats. They
Yeah.
don't, how important that is, because we know minority teachers benefit everybody, not just minority students.
Mhm. So, this is very true for the educational system, this is relevant in every industry, in every sector, whenever there's human beings interacting with human beings, this
Mhm.
type of thing begins to take place. It's a system that allows some people to function and thrive in, but then there's a minority that's becoming a majority that don't fit in. And
Mhm.
so once you begin to tap into that this passion works in this way,
Mhm.
it's game changing for you.
Right. Right.
So the problem then becomes, it's not really a problem because I got to speak into it, but if you're looking around like, okay, what's broken that's affecting me in a negative way, that's supposed to be driving my passion.
Mhm.
Once you find that thing, Maleeta, like as a homeowner, I know when I see something broken in the house, I'm like, all right, I got to find the right tool.
But say, don't talk about that. That's the legacy of adulting. Home
Right,
ownership. You're like,
right.
what's this? We need new gutters. Now we need this. So
I mean, you went a little too far because I can't fix a gutter. I'm gonna have to call somebody in. But if it's something, and my daughter, she's very much exploratory, expeditionary. So she be breaking stuff. So so I gotta find, if I come in, I gotta say, all right, what tool do I need to fix that? And
right.
so when you know that your passion is revolving around what's broken and what impacts you in a negative way, what you hate,
Mhm.
then the question becomes, well, this thing is broken. What do I do? What do I have? What tool do I have to fix it?
Mhm.
That tool is your talent,
Mhm.
right? And so even as you've already told me what your talent is, synthesizing information, putting
Mhm.
it in basic components so that you can then relay it to others. I never asked you though what you hate. So what do you hate, Maleeta?
Um, Currently, it would probably be work-life balance, which doesn't really exist right now. And so I hate that. But I think more importantly, I think it just became a pet peeve how you never hear someone say, I wasn't that good at reading. You never hear someone say that, right? Because of the stigmatism that goes with that. But you hear people say all the time that, yeah, I wasn't all that great at math.
Yep.
Like, and how is that, okay? Or, I hang out with young people. So the new one where that math is not mathing, that one cracks me up. But, just like, I hate that people say I wasn't that good at math. And so, or when you talk to parents and you're telling them about their child and, parents will say, well, I wasn't that good at math. Well, that's not a genetic trait, like just because you weren't good at math. And so I think that I hate that. So, I mean, I just try to bring as much as enthusiasm and just kind of say, like, the power of yet. Like, you don't have this yet. Doesn't mean that you're not going to get it. And it may take a little bit longer than someone else, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's unreachable. Like, I do think that all children are able to, have access to higher level mathematics. Now, it may take them a little bit longer, but it doesn't mean that they can't access it. They can access it. It might just take them a little bit of time. It could be the teaching style. It could be the pacing. Yep. But I do think that all kids can have access, and that sometimes our children, in terms of the opportunity gap, they don't get that opportunity. And it's not that they're not capable. They are capable. You don't give them the opportunity. So I'm here to make sure that kids get the opportunity.
And see, this is so formulaic right now, because what you have said, I saw this in you. This is why I wanted you to come on, because you took a thing, you're like, I was not good at math, and you didn't run from it though. You ran towards it and ended up finding, like, there's something here for me though, and if it's something here for me, it's something here for other people. And now what I'm hearing you saying is, I hate when people say I'm not good at math, and then that just speaks to what you're doing now. So I'm going to give you some space to kind of tell my audience what it is that you're doing with initiative that you have started or you're going to be starting soon, because it is incorporating your passion and then your ability to synthesize information and then make it available to the masses. So can you just tell us what it is that you're going to do?
So I am the owner and founder of Counting Potential. We are a full service math service company. So we service students in terms of mathematics from everything from pre-K up to, in the fall, we'll be adding Algebra 2. And so we do everything in between. We do work with students who have IEPs. We do work with students who need to fill in the learning gaps. We do provide amazing opportunities for our students to learn math. So this summer, we do have some students working on a project that they came up with. They want to own a food truck business. So we are working through that. We're talking about profit margins. We're talking about scaling. We're talking about quantities with catering. And these are with 10-year-olds. We're interviewing food truck owners and getting everything. So we provide these amazing opportunities for students, and we're just kind of leveling the playing field, because mathematics, I believe, is the gateway to success in the future. Our current flagship offer will be executive functioning. And so this kind of came out of observation. So executive functioning is all the time management piece, the organization piece, the note-taking piece, the mindset shifts that students transitioning into middle school as well as transitioning into high school need. So that is going to be our new course offer starting fall of 2022.
Look at you, got your elevator pitch all the way together. I'm talking about. And, like I said, I love seeing somebody operating in their genius. I saw it when I saw this thing go out, like I feel like it was like a couple of weeks ago, almost a month ago, and I was like, "Ooh, I got to get her on the show." But I didn't know the full story, but I already knew that the pieces were going to come together. The thing about it, though you're making it look easy, there's work. You've already said that, like there's work to do.
There is work to do.
Because when you try to get these, I mean, the last part, let me just get this out the way. The last part of the equation is purpose. But your purpose in life is to identify what your God-given talent is. You already said that, and then use that as a tool to address your God-given passion, the thing that's broken. And you're clearly doing that with this initiative, right? But it took you, 20 years of being in the system and understanding, seeing how people work, and, having it traumatize you. Like, I don't think I'm good at math, but then being like, no, let's come at this from a different angle. And if I were to, as much as Einstein is the answer for most people about what or who a genius is, I think most people at the end of the day hate failure.
Right.
And when something makes them fail, it makes them feel less than, and they walk away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I have an acronym that I build into this workshop that I want to share with you. And it's fail is the first attempt in learning.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as long as people understand that, hey, look, it's not a fail as long as you learn from it. You might not get the right. I think that's why people hate math so much, because they're like, man, I went through all that work and I got the wrong answer. But yeah, you took some steps though.
Right. And you only made, you typically, with math, it's a mistake here. And because you made this mistake here, the rest of the problem is off. But look at where you were, what you were able to do up until that point. And it's like, this is a simple fix, so
Yep.
it's more so with that fail attempt, but also it's just a reflection piece. What did I do right versus focusing on what did you do wrong? What did you do right? So you did it right up until this part. And it was just something that we can address and we can fix.
Exactly. And that's how to approach this genius equation. You've already got your pieces together, but I think of it like a puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
If you're like me, you probably have multiple things. You already said you got multiple things that you hate. I have
Mm-hmm.
multiple talents, and it's like, how do I piece these
Mm-hmm.
things together to
Right.
unlock this genius in this lane, though?
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to get it wrong. That's why I tell kids all the time. It's okay when you get it wrong the first time, but just pick up the pieces and try again.
Mm-hmm.
Be comfortable with maybe having to restart every time, but every time you restart, you're going to learn and
Mm-hmm.
you're going to advance a little bit. So, one thing that I heard you say this, because the first thing you said you hated was, I hate this work-life balance.
Work-life balance.
Why your work-life balance is off is because you're driven though by this passion
Mm-hmm.
to address this need
Right.
in children.
Right. And then the tree is the school system.
It is.
Because you need the abundance of autonomy to do the kind of work that's needed to kind of make this amazing next generation of mathematicians, because you need math and everything and every day. So to be able to grow them, to make them, it's just like you need to be, for me, just the confines of the district and being able to really nurture that talent can be difficult at times. And so that work-life balance sometimes gets difficult because you want to give so much more, but then it's just like, I got to go home and kind of nurture and feed into my own child. So it's just the work-life balance and just different things with parents and families. So definitely the work-life balance and just needing more autonomy.
Maleeta, what I see for you, I mean, everything is difficult when it first starts out because you have the vision, but I see you've already mentioned that this happens. You have this light that's shining and other people are going to be drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
And like, how can I support you? How can I come alongside you? Can you teach me? Right? You're going to start to draw teachers into this. You're going to start to draw parents into this, not just to say, hey, here's my child, but hey, I see what you're doing and I want to support. I want to either support and add on, because what genius does is it recognizes somebody else's genius and says, hey, look, you're good at this, I'm not, and that's okay. Let's come together
Right.
and the impact of what we can do. So there's going to be some who are going to already have their subject matter expert that are going to come in and provide a piece that you either knew that you needed or didn't know that you needed. Right. But then there are others who are going to be like almost like a blank canvas that are going to come in and be like, teach me to do what you're doing. And because you've been trained, you trained yourself on how to tap into this talent and basically fill up an empty canvas with what you know. Right. You're going to see your growth really pick up. You're going to see the staffing pick up. Start looking for some grants. You're going to need some grant money.
Yes, we definitely need some grants, because the other thing that we see, while we're a full service mathematics company, we're not nonprofit. So when you start thinking about that, the other thing is to, be able to be in a position to offer services at a reduced rate or free for families that need them. Because that's the thing, when you start thinking about certain families and certain economic status, is that they are working to make ends meet. They are not in a position to have these extra things, knowing that their kids need them. So we are hoping to be in a position that we can offer, scholarships or offer these opportunities where, some of, my friends that are in big business would be able to maybe sponsor a child to give them that opportunity, to give them that push to close the opportunity gap so that they can, work at different levels, just with a little bit of a push.
That's an excellent idea. Not just researching the grant money, but then getting benefactors, or what's the word? Well, I'll stay with benefactors because the other word is escaping me. But yeah, that's great. Now I want to focus on it because it almost came back to me. Sponsors.
Yes.
Sponsors.
Yes. We are looking for, at some point we want to be in a position to offer sponsors so that it would offset the cost, or have parents to pay a really low cost so that they can have the opportunities for their child. Because outside of the school system, a lot of times people don't know that when your child is academically at a place, maybe they're below grade level, a lot of resources is put in place to help those child to kind of get to grade level status. And then we know that on the other end, you have gifted and talented, programs and things like that for the other end, the other end of the spectrum. But what about those kids who are in the middle? What do we do for them? How do we accelerate them? And so, and thinking of what you're saying is that we're just saying that it's okay to be average and mediocre. And so what about, as you would say, what about their genius? Right. What about if we just gave them just a little bit of push, a little bit of opportunity? Could they work at this level? And that doesn't always happen.
Here's another thing that I see for you, Maleeta. So we know this group. You mentioned the gifted and talented, right? So you have IEP, and then you have the gifted and talented. I see your organization as a pipeline between the two. Yep. Nobody's ever really seen that before. No. Nobody's ever thought that somebody can move from being on an IEP to being gifted and talented. You're going to be able to show people that. You're going to be the word is bellwether. You're going to be one of the first to go out and do it, and then show that it's possible, right? So I'm excited for you. What I was alluding to earlier, I guess it didn't end up being as relevant as I thought, but what I was alluding to earlier is that I call Tisa a polyglot, and a polyglot is somebody who speaks multiple languages. And I was like, but it's not typical like English, Spanish. It's being able to shift between these learning styles, these learning languages. When you see like, oh, okay, you speak this language though, and you can switch because you're synthesizing this information. Right. So you see that as a part of what you're doing, but yours definitely went into a lane all its own, and I was
but math is a language though, because math is, when you look at it, and then I can't quote where I read the article because probably read it somewhere in a mix, that math is a language that is taught entirely at school. So when you start talking about outside of the numbers in a rote counting, all the other aspects of math are taught in school. And so when you start thinking about that, that's where some of the difficulties come in for some families and not for others. So when you look at it, math is a language, and being able to kind of switch back and forth. And even educators, some educators, they are reading people. Especially at the elementary level where they're not departmentalized, it's being able to understand the language, but then also be able to speak the language fluently of mathematics. It's its own separate language.
It's all about how you make it relatable. Like even this food truck project, I know when my daughter was younger, I'm like, what's 100 divided by 4? Like, I don't know. How many quarters is it taking $1? 4? I'm like, oh, so
right. You do right. And just connecting it to them, and just, providing real life opportunities for stuff. Like, let's think about this. Your family is having a family reunion, hot dogs come 8 in a pack. You've got, 150 people. How many packs of hot dogs do you need? How many buns? Buns come this. And it's just really just looking for those opportunities to show them that math is everywhere, and that you can kind of just think about it.
Well, look, this has been a phenomenal interview. Thank you again for taking the time. You have flown through it, and there's no passing it, but you have definitely had flying colors all throughout this. I really appreciate you again showcasing what it is that you're doing, showcasing your genius. And it's, Maleeta, it's my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being my genius guest. This has been Reggie Key of Inkwell Spoken, presenting Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. And this has been my genius guest. I'm going to put doctor on it. If it's not a doctor yet, it's coming soon. Dr. Maleeta Kitchen. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwell Spoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.